Hi everyone, Mrs. Hooper here, and today we are going to look at types of cells. So, make sure you have your notes out, eliminate any distractions, and let's get started. By the end of today's video, you should be able to name the two different types of cells. You should be able to describe what all cells have in common and what is the main difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. We talked about how all living things contain one or more cells. Well, there's actually only two categories or types of cells: prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells are only single-celled. They're only unicellular. Eukaryotic cells can be unicellular or multicellular. Let's get into some similarities that both types of cells have in common, and then we'll go into the differences. Eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells have four things in common. The first thing that they have in common is they all have DNA. This is a vital component to all cells. They can't survive without it. In a prokaryotic cell, you can see the DNA, it just kind of looks like squiggly lines. In a eukaryotic cell, it's contained within the nucleus. Now, DNA is important because that contains all of the genetic makeup of the cell, and it allows the cell to develop and function. The second important feature that they have in common are ribosomes. This is where protein synthesis takes place, or where protein is made in the cell. And protein is responsible for the cell structure and the cell function. It cannot live without protein. So, ribosomes are found in all cells. The third thing that they have in common is cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is like a jelly-like substance that holds all the inside parts or organelles. And in this diagram, the light blue is all of the cytoplasm. The fourth thing that they have in common is a cell membrane. All cells have this feature. Think of it as a fence to a yard. This allows things to come in and out of the cell. Now let's look at some differences. We'll look at prokaryotic cells first. Prokaryotic cells are smaller and simpler cells. They are only found in unicellular organisms. Prokaryotic cells, the biggest difference I would say is that they do not have a nucleus. It has the DNA that it needs in order to replicate, but it does not have a nucleus. Examples of prokaryotic cells would include all different types of bacteria. Now let's look at eukaryotic cells. These cells are larger and more complex, and as you can see from the diagram, you're going to see a lot more. There's what they call organelles. These are, think of them as like organs for the cell, and they have special functions and features. The biggest difference between eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells is the nucleus. This portion right here is the nucleus of the cell. It contains the DNA, and it's a lot like the brain of the cell. And we'll talk about some of the other parts in another video because the parts of a cell are very important. Some examples of where eukaryotic cells can be found would be in plants, animals, fungus, and protists. In this video, you learned that there are two different types of cells. There are prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. You also learned that these cells have four particular features in common. They all have DNA. All cells have ribosomes where protein synthesis happens or where protein is made. All cells have cytoplasm, and all cells have a cell membrane that allows things to come in and out of the cell. The last thing that we learned is that the main difference between prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells is the absence of a nucleus in prokaryotic cells and a nucleus in eukaryotic cells. Now it's your turn. Make sure that you complete the notes or the activity that goes along with this video. And remember, smile today, have a curious mind, and a kind heart. You are loved. Talk to you soon.